Democrats win on health care, environment, women's rights, respect for democracy. But on those issues, I bet you that are the big ones that they vote on more: crime, immigration, wars, economy, corruption. So that's the takeaway there.
The only thing the Democratic Party stands for today is opposition to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I just read Kamala Harris's new book, 107
No,
Days.
you didn't.
I did?
No, you didn't. When they ask who has a better plan, Republicans crushing it on crime, immigration, wars, the economy, even corruption. Democrats win by 2 points on respect for democracy. Now, some of this is just because people are stupid.
So, Kamala Harris just dropped her latest book, apparently explaining how and why she lost the election. Spoiler alert, it's never her fault. The pages drip with half-truths, victimhood tales, and the usual woke word salad we've come to expect from the left. But then enters our anti-woke gladiator, Bill Maher, ready with his scalpel of sarcasm. He tore through Kamala's excuses, exposing her for what she really is, a confused, out-of-touch, and hopelessly performative politician pretending to be profound. Buckle up. This one's going to sting.
Perpetuating victimhood, especially when it's false, is not a great advertisement for leadership. Kamala Harris's new memoir of the 24 election is called 107 Days, but it should have been called Everyone Sucks But Me. 107 Days is a victim's title because, get it, she only had 107 days to win. Yeah, and $1.5 billion and a built-in army of about 75 million people who'd vote for any human-adjacent life form that wasn't Trump.
So, Bill Maher kicked things off by shredding Kamala Harris's book title 107 Days. According to Maher, that title alone is a perfect example of Kamala's spin, framing herself as the poor victim who just didn't have enough time. But Maher wasn't buying it. He pointed out that Kamala had one of the largest campaign budgets in political history and the backing of a mainstream media that practically worshipped her. Not to mention, she had around 75 million voters who would have voted for anything with a D next to it. So crying about only 107 days isn't just misleading. It's laughable. Maher basically said what we're all thinking. Kamala had every advantage and still managed to flop.
In 107 days, nothing is ever Kamala's fault. Biden lets her down by not stepping down sooner. Pouty face emoji. Gavin Newsom, he was asked for his endorsement, but texted, "Hiking, we'll call back." But then never did. And then he didn't even ask her to prom. America itself lets Kamala down by not being ready for the running mate she really wanted, Pete Buttigieg. So she's stuck with the Home Depot paint salesman. And the rest is herstory. Poor Kamala. We made her the star of a rom-com and didn't even give her a gay best friend.
Kamala Harris didn't just write a book. She wrote a political soap opera. In it, she boldly tosses her former boss, Joe Biden, straight under the bus, blaming him for not stepping aside early enough so she could save the campaign. She even hints that Biden ignored warnings about his declining mental sharpness. Talk about loyalty, right? But Kamala doesn't stop there. She turns her fury toward America itself, accusing the country of not being ready for a female president because apparently accountability is optional. And just when you think it can't get pettier, she blames her loss on not getting her dream running mate, Pete Buttigieg. Classic Kamala. When in doubt, blame everyone but yourself.
Kamala writes that on election night, when it was clear she lost, an aide peeled the words "Madam President" off the cupcakes before handing them out. Oh, geez, that's like a scene from Bridget Jones Runs for President, for Christ's sake.
This part is pure comedy gold. Kamala actually blames one of her own aides. Yes, an aide for tearing off the Madam President labels from cupcakes before they were handed out to voters. Apparently, that single act was part of her grand downfall. But here's the kicker. The aide only did it because by that point, It was painfully obvious that Kamala had already lost to Donald Trump. Imagine that. Cupcakes being the scapegoat for a historic election loss. Maher couldn't help but laugh at the sheer absurdity of it all. While the rest of us saw a campaign in flames, Kamala saw frosting sabotage. You can't make this stuff up. But she sure did.
Look, ladies, I know this isn't fair, but we're all always running against the worst cliche of who people think we are. Women Democrats can't look oversensitive or preachy or unable to laugh at themselves. They also can't look silly, like Gretchen Whitmer did, trying to hide in the Oval Office. They have to look brave and strong.
And that's absolutely true. The women in the DNC have carefully sculpted an image of being strong, fearless, and unshakable. The kind of women who never cry, never flinch, and definitely never admit weakness. It's all about projecting power, not vulnerability. They parade this Iron Lady persona, hoping to be seen as stoic leaders rather than emotional women. But let's be honest, we all know it's a facade. Beneath the polished smiles and carefully scripted speeches lies a desperate need to appear tough enough to compete in a man's world. They suppress their feminine instincts, terrified that showing empathy or emotion will be seen as weakness. Yet, ironically, that's what makes them look even more artificial. Trying so hard to seem invincible that they forget authenticity is what real strength actually looks like.
It wasn't a good look for the woman party that all the guys were speaking out for Jimmy Kimmel when Trump went after him, except on the woman's show, where for 5 days the outspoken hosts were suddenly as quiet as a geisha.
Now, if you're wondering why Bill Maher took aim at the ladies on The View, here's the backstory. They jabbed him first, mocking and dismissing his comments after he questioned why they'd gone mysteriously silent on the whole Jimmy Kimmel fiasco. But Ma being Mara wasn't about to let that slide. He called out their so-called bravery for what it really was, performative. When Kimmel was initially suspended, insiders claimed that The View could be next on the chopping block. And suddenly the usually loud, outspoken panel went dead quiet. The producers and the hosts reportedly avoided saying anything for fear of being axed. Then once news broke that Kimmel was returning, voila. Their voices came back louder and braver than ever. Ma exposed it perfectly. Their courage only appears when it's safe to have an opinion.
Then on the 5th day, they rose and said, no one silences us. No one had to. You silenced yourself. Whoopi Goldberg continued, did you all really think we weren't going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel? No, I thought you would, but then you didn't. Five days? Talk about needing extra time to get ready. And if you can't take a breath and laugh at that, you're making my point.
Of Sunny Holston, Whoopi Goldberg, and Anna Navarro are the perfect examples of selective bravery. Fierce when it's convenient, silent when it's risky. These women have built their careers on outrage, quick to cancel anyone who doesn't echo their talking points. Yet, when the heat turns toward them, suddenly they're cautious, calculating, and terrified of the very mob they helped create. They know exactly how vicious a cancel campaign can be, and they'll do anything to avoid becoming its next victim. It's almost poetic. The self-proclaimed warriors of justice trembling at the thought of losing their only source of livelihood. But here's the twist. They still gleefully unleash that same mob on others. Their hypocrisy isn't just evident. It's practically an art form polished and performed daily on national television.
Polling came out, and this is really, I'm speaking to the Democrats especially here, because Trump's numbers are down. They're down with Latinos, they're down with blacks, they're down 15 points with whites. And when whites say, you're not hip anymore, ooh. And yet, in the other poll, on issues, Trump still winning. So this is your big opportunity, Democrats. He's down in the numbers, and you still can't score.
He just can't seem to find its footing, and the reasons are piling up fast. There's no real leader to inspire confidence or chart a clear direction forward. The party remains trapped in its own echo chamber, still heavily influenced if not outright controlled by the fringe woke left. It's become a toxic environment where groupthink thrives and any hint of dissent is treated like heresy. Instead of confronting reality, they cling to delusion, convinced that slogans can replace strategy. And to make matters worse, Kamala Harris has decided to throw her own party under the bus. Rather than taking responsibility for one of the most humiliating election defeats in DNC history, she's pointing fingers and rewriting history. This chaos disguised as leadership, and the Democrats are paying the price for it.
When they ask who has a better plan, Republicans crushing it on crime, immigration, wars, the economy, even corruption. Democrats win by 2 points on respect for democracy. Now, some of this is just because people are stupid.
Comes to raw popularity, it's true Donald Trump might be losing a bit of ground. And honestly, that's not surprising. After all, sustaining sky-high momentum after such an unprecedented political comeback is no easy feat, but here's the twist. While his approval ratings may fluctuate, Trump is still dominating where it truly matters. The core issues that keep everyday Americans awake at night. On the economy, he's resonating with working-class voters who remember lower inflation and stronger paychecks. On the border, he's seen as the only one serious about restoring order. And on international relations, his unapologetic America First stance continues to command respect. So sure, Trump might not be everyone's favorite personality, but when it comes to performance on the issues, he's still miles ahead of the rest.
Democrats win on healthcare, environment, women's rights, respect for but on those issues, I bet you that are the big ones that they vote on more: crime, immigration, wars, economy, corruption. So that's the takeaway there.
The only thing the Democratic Party stands for today is opposition to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I just read Kamala Harris's new book, 107
No,
Days.
you didn't.
I did?
No, you didn't.
Honestly, that's the Democratic Party's entire playbook at this point. Fighting Donald Trump. That's all they've got. They've made a full-time career out of opposing him, milking the anti-Trump narrative for every drop of political capital. It worked the first time around when Biden won, but they ran the same tired strategy again when Trump faced off with Kamala Harris. And this time, voters weren't buying it. People were exhausted by the endless Trump bashing and wanted something real. Policies, plans, vision. But when they turned to the DNC, there was nothing there. No clear economic strategy, no border plan, no leadership, just more outrage and empty slogans. The Democrats built their identity around hating Trump. And now that the outrage has worn off, the party looks hollow, leaderless, and out of touch with what voters actually care about.